I'm Rabbi Matt Abelson. Stay tuned for Taped with Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight.
But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. We're here for part 2 with Charlotte Korchak of Stand With Us, who's here from Israel, talking about Israel advocacy, talking about the truth about what's going on in the Middle East. She is a senior educator for Stand With Us. Her international senior educator position has brought her around the world, speaking on college campuses, to high school and college students, speaking to communities, and we're so fortunate to have her here in Chicago right now. So stay with us here for part 2 at Northbrook Community Synagogue, and Charlotte Korchak from Stand With Us on Taped with Rabbi Doug.
Not everyone's going to love everything I have to say. Maybe I'm a little bit of a slap in the face, and I know that I am. But I've watched a generation be raised to not be able to confront people. And this is where we are. And they've been raised to run to the teacher. And they just don't know how to problem solve anymore. And it's an entire generation of young people who have been completely caught up to the point that they go to universities now, and then they go off to have safe places because they cry when somebody offends them. And yeah, maybe I'm just an Israeli who was raised with really tough split skin, but we need to have really tough split skin these days. And we need to be okay to be offended. And then move on. And I'm really sorry that she walked out, and if somebody wants me to answer the question of what somebody says when somebody says that we stole the land, I'm happy to answer the question. If you want facts, man, I love the facts. That's my entire life. We got into the train of anti-Semitism, and that's what I've been dealing with. But feel free to ask me questions about the facts. Peggy, what's up? You're really excited.
Okay, I think a very important topic just came up now, and that is Jewish courage.
Yes.
Right now, across the country, in hundreds of cities, in campuses across the country, we have these ceasefire resolutions that may seem to want ceasefire, but they want a unilateral ceasefire, that Jews hold their fire and Hamas reloads. We can't, all the Jewish organizations, we meet every week, which is a miracle, almost like the parting of the sea. I mean, but we're meeting every week, but we don't have the resources to go to every single city council. We need every person who cares to forget about being afraid and to speak up. And maybe you can give them some of the pointers if they go to challenge a ceasefire, to tell them where to send the request for a ceasefire.
Right. I mean, again, I think the big thing that was just said is Jewish courage. To me, Jewish courage comes from knowledge, and it comes from power in numbers. You're not going to go to a city council and vote on your own. You're going to go with a team of people who are going to be there with you. And you will give each other the courage together to speak out. Right? Look around the room. Like, we're a family. We showed up. These are the people who are going to have your back. And there's a lot more of us. Right? And so, yeah, we should, when that happens, we should be proposing our own resolutions to say what? Release the hostages, Hamas surrender. By the way, that was our messaging at OSU. Every speech was, BDS is not the answer, release the hostages, Hamas surrender. We repeated it over and over and over again. No to a ceasefire. I feel really bad about what just happened. The last thing I want is for somebody to walk out and not feel like they got the tools that they needed. But I can only go so far, right, and give you the tools, but you have to have the courage. And when somebody says, well, I'm not confrontational, okay, but actually the first thing that I said was to not get into a confrontation, right, was to create a space in a calm conversation and create a space where somebody can ask you those questions, and then it's not a confrontation, right, it's a place where you can educate somebody. You don't have to be confrontational. You can avoid those circumstances, right? You don't have to go to a BDS vote and be called a white supremacist like I was within 5 minutes. It was nice. I was also, by the way, told that I wasn't a Jew, which was the most offensive thing that's ever been said to me, shockingly enough. Literally, a girl looked at me and said, "You're not a Jew, you're a Zionist." And she said it multiple times to my face while I was being screamed at and called a white supremacist again. And you know what I did? I laughed, and I walked away. And I moved on. And I walked around to the Jewish students, and I gave them the chizuk and the strength and the empowerment, and I joked with them, and I laughed with them. And I said, this is how we Jews survive. And they came out proud as hell of what they did that night. Even though, again, they face anti-Semitism nonstop. It's just a matter of power and numbers, and knowing what you have to say. You know why they felt that way? Because we prepared their speeches, and they had the facts, and they knew what to say. So keep learning. I would have said to her, she has 2 kids, great. Every day go home and read them part of the book that helps explain to them about Israel and about what's going on, so that every day they feel more confident to have this conversation. This is where we are. Yeah?
Yeah, sorry,
Are you apologizing?
Two questions. One that you were alluding to about
Maybe stand.
not going how far. There's a lot of people who don't care what facts are, don't care what history is.
Yeah.
Is there at what point do you realize, move on from this person? That's one thing. The next question.
Yeah, hold on, I'll get you. So first of all, very important, listen, I think we all sense when somebody's not listening, right? But my biggest trick is don't give long wordy answers. I had this thing that I've been doing lately. A lot of people have been saying to me, there was no Israel before 1948, right? And you know what I would say to them? Very simply, ready? What about the kingdom of Israel? That's it. I didn't say 3,000 years ago, and King David, and it was there, and it was the capital was Jerusalem, and no, just, what about the kingdom of Israel? And then I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And what were they doing while I was waiting? They were Googling. And Google is my best friend in moments like this, right? Because Google, when you Google the kingdom of Israel, it will come up as, 1000 BCE, the first king was King David, the second was King Solomon, and it will verify all of the history that we know to be true. And I've actually had moments where people come at me aggressive, and I do something like that, and then they go, wait, I've never heard of that. And that's how you know you might have. That's exactly, that's when you know. I was talking to a girl during the last operation, 2021, okay? We go back and forth, right? I said, Israel's trying to defend itself. First she said, from like what? And I sent her like photos and videos of all of the bombs in Israel, like all of the rockets landing. And she said, ready? Why haven't I seen any of this? Ooh, okay, I'm good. I got it. We're in a good spot, right? She's not denying it. She's okay, confused, right? We kept going. I said, we're defending ourselves. She said, from what? I said, from terrorism. She said, yeah, but there's only terrorism because of the occupation. And I said, but there's been terrorism before the occupation. She said, what are you talking about? And I said, again, a one-line answer. What about the 1929 Hebron massacre? I waited. And what was the response? Why have I never heard of this? That's how you know that somebody's opening. If you show somebody that maybe, just maybe, they don't know everything, or what they think they know is wrong, and it's a simple Google search, not the complex stuff, the simple stuff, if they say, wait a second, that's when you know. If they just deny, shift to another claim, that's when you know, let go, move on. Cut your losses. Okay?
Next question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Does Israel have any strategy, or is there one today with respect to the United Nations these days?
I think there was a long strategy, by the way, that PB actually was putting forward in the 10 years leading up, I would say, probably from 2010 to 2020. An active effort, by the way, that he made to go to South American countries and to go to African countries and to sway them to vote for Israel. And I have to tell you all something. It is showing, it's bearing fruit. We don't feel it. The UN sucks. But we are seeing countries that used to historically vote no, abstain. That's one step towards voting with. So the strategy was working with these other countries, showing these countries that there's a benefit to having a relationship with Israel. And if we continue to develop our relationship with the Arab world, I think we'll also start to see it there, especially when it comes to Iran and this access that's being created, right? And by the way, you should also, I want to take it back, and give me, I don't know what time it is. My watch broke today. Anyone? 8:45. Holy crap, I've gone way over time. Okay, I'm going to take one more question from Ion and you in the back, and we're going to wrap this up. And I have a couple things I want to say, and I'm going to get y'all out of here and get you home. But y'all don't seem antsy at all, so I didn't know. Go ahead, Ion, what's up?
Firstly, you're right about the kids thing when I was in high school.
Say it again. Wait, what was the first two words? By the way, a little tip, if you ever want somebody to listen to you, start with if you're right, and just agree with them wherever you can agree with them. Everyone wants to listen to you after you tell them that you're right. It's great. Go ahead.
So you're right about the high school thing. Kids really need to learn, and like parents would come up to me in my school that was 1/3 Jewish, and they'd be like, "Please tell us what we can do." And I was like, "You have to like tell your kids to also like help with the anti-Semitism that's happening in school, because no one else is saying anything. So like parents really like talk to your kids about that." Okay, my question is like, what do you say about the stuff like Israel knew about the attack or the Jews?
She said, what do you say to people who claim that Israel knew about the attack? Or, I mean, I'm going to take it one step further and say that they knew about it and they allowed it to happen. Honestly, I would look at somebody and I would say, I'm beyond offended by the claim that's being made right now. This was the worst attack against Jews since the Holocaust. The notion that any Jewish person knew that this was going to happen and didn't do something to stop it is really despicable. October 7th was a failure. It was a failure of intelligence, it was a failure of imagination, just like September 11th was a failure of imagination. And Israel was too deep inside of a concept. We call it in Hebrew the Konzeption. And when everyone around you reinforces an idea, which that idea was that Hamas was restrained, when pieces of information come into the picture that don't fit that concept, we reject it. And we'll get more information as it's more investigated. But America didn't know about September 11th and let it happen, just like Israel didn't know about October 7th and let it happen. Could more have been done? Maybe. Should they have maybe heeded the warnings at 4 o'clock in the morning on October 6th, on October 7th? Yeah. Hindsight's 20/20. Most of the people who needed to take responsibility have taken responsibility and accountability for their failures that day. But to blame the worst attack against the Jews since the Holocaust on the Jews, and that's exactly how you have to frame it for somebody, is really disgusting and really beyond the pale. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about something you alluded to earlier in the evening, talking about the 30,000 and the words like genocide and apartheid and all these things that we keep hearing in America and our kids on college campuses are bombarded with. When we see the evening news and you see the destruction, block after block after block of destruction, it's very easy for people to say, well, it looks like a genocide.
Right.
How do you address that? How do you give ammunition, so to speak, for the kids and adults to speak to that?
First of all, always acknowledge that the destruction in Gaza is really tragic. That the last thing Israel wanted to do was level north of Gaza. We have to explain that. The reason why much of Gaza above ground has been destroyed is because what we've been fighting is Gaza below ground. 3 of our Jewish students at OSU decided to get to a conversation with 5 of the anti-Israel students in line for the divestment vote. And as they were talking, at one point, the Jewish kids said to the non-Jewish kids, well, yeah, you know, one of the reasons why so many innocent civilians are dying is because of the tunnels. And you know what the response was? Because of the tunnels. And do you know what the response was? What tunnels? And the Jewish student said, what do you mean? Hamas's tunnel network underneath Gaza. They said, what are you talking about? They said, there's a tunnel network underneath Gaza that's between 350 and 450 miles long. By the way, the New York subway is 248 miles long. And they looked at them and said, well, what are you talking about? And then they said, well, I'm going to have to go look that up. Yeah, go read a book. We'd all be really grateful. So again, it's a matter of connecting all the dots for somebody, right? It's taking a giant step back and saying, what you're seeing is horrific destruction, and it's absolutely tragic, this destruction, okay? First of all, not a genocide. What you are seeing is somebody defending themselves from a terrorist organization that is existing underground, right? You gotta go on to say, I can show you some tragic photos of Dresden from February 12, 1945. And I guarantee you, knowing the context, you probably aren't going to accuse the Americans and the Brits of committing a genocide against the Germans. It's called a war. And the aggressor in this war is not the Palestinians, it's Hamas, who attacked Israel on October 7th. That was a genocide, actually. Stated goal of Hamas is to wipe out Israel and to wipe out all the Jews. That was their stated intention on October 7th. That was a genocide. Israel's responding to it and trying to eliminate the threat, which tragically resulted in civilian casualties in Gaza, is not a genocide. Let's get to that number really quickly. 30,000. That's where we're at right now. First of all, don't challenge the number. It's probably close to accurate. Where Hamas lies is in specific instances, like the Al-Ahli hospital. Is it 500 in the span of 15 minutes, and eventually we know it was less than 50. Right? It was even the convoy. We have no idea how many people actually died in that 8 convoy attack. Maybe it's 100, we don't know. Rafah, the night of the Super Bowl, remember that? Where they said that we bombed Rafah during the Super Bowl so that people would be distracted because apparently everyone watches the Super Bowl? Don't miss things. They also, 100 people were killed in airstrikes apparently that night. We don't know. 30,000 probably accurate. But Israel's numbers of about 12,000 of them being terrorists is probably also very accurate. Hamas, by the way, has already admitted to 6,000 of them being terrorists. Okay? So now real quick, just for you in your own head to understand this, how we look at warfare against terrorist organizations is in ratios of combatant to non-combatant. And in this conflict right now, given those numbers, for every 1 combatant we've killed less than 2 innocent civilians. And whenever you ever say this to somebody who's not Jewish or not Zionist, clarify, like, it's horrible to talk about human beings this way. And every single innocent loss of life is a tragic loss of life. Hamas has created a reality where there is no way to eliminate them without also harming people above them. All we can do is try to minimize that harm to the best of our ability. And we have done so successfully. By the way, I was at the University of Florida, and there were some protesters and some hecklers, and one girl said to me, she said, "Are you really proud of Israel's counterterrorism right now? Look at how many innocent people they've killed." And my response was, actually, I'm very proud of our counterterrorism. Given the history, watching what the Americans did in Afghanistan, what they did in Raqqa and Mosul, or more recently against ISIS, their numbers were, for every 1 combatant that they killed 3 to 4 innocent civilians. Well, Israel has set the record. 1 to 1. That was our last operations against Gaza. And this one is less than 1 to 2. And again, every innocent loss of life is tragic, but in terms of how we conduct ourselves, we're the best in the world. I don't want innocent Palestinians to die. And the only way for innocent Palestinians to no longer die is for Hamas to surrender. And if they don't, we're going to have to go get them. You know why? Because they vowed to kill our children over and over and over again until we're all dead. So this is what we have to do. And if you really genuinely cared about innocent Palestinians, and this is what I say to somebody, you really care about innocent Palestinians? Call Hamas out for using them as human shields. And every single day that you don't call them out for using them as human shields, you are incentivizing Hamas to continue to use the tactic, which ultimately gets more innocent people killed in Gaza. Again, if I lived in a nice little twilight zone where every day after October 7th, people were saying, release the hostages, Hamas surrender and stop using human shields, we'd be living in a very different reality.
Are you shocked that they would?
I'm not shocked at all. I just would really love to live in a world where that was my reality, but I live in a world where Jews are Jews, and this is where we are. And all I could do was speak aloud and fight back and try to win the people over who I know will be there to listen. We have to create more righteous among the nations. They're out there. They're just as afraid as you are to speak up. Because when they speak up, especially as non-Jews, they don't have skin in the game, and when somebody attacks them, they just pull back because they don't have skin in the game. We need to make sure that they understand that we have skin in the game. When there is anti-Semitism in a society, it says nothing about the Jews of that society, and it says everything about the rot within that society. Society is rotting right now. We are watching it. What starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. How do we end this conversation? This is how we have to talk about things today. This is my own little opinion, so roll with it as you see fit. But talking about Israel and Zionism is not going to work for a lot of people. But talking about their own values might. And I still genuinely believe that we live in a world here in America where the majority of people believe in good values, freedoms, protection of the innocent, protection of women and men from sexual assault. Good. And when you have a conversation with somebody, bring it back to their values. Do you think that rape is resistance? Is there ever a scenario in this world where rape is okay? And I would look at somebody, and if they said, well, yeah, certain circumstances, I would look at them and I would say, me and you, we live on two different moral planes, and there's no reason for us to continue this conversation. And show them that their values are way out of whack, and move on. This is a values conversation. We gotta get back to talking about the values that we care about. As people are tearing down the American flag and putting up a Palestinian flag in its place in this country, that's a values conversation. It's so much bigger than Israel-Palestine. So we have to get back to values. Do you believe that children shouldn't be burned alive in their homes? Do you believe that young people should be able to go to a music festival and not have it end with them being gang raped and tortured and slaughtered? Because I do. And if you think that that's resistance, well, again, we don't live on the same moral plane, and there's no reason for me to have this conversation. And you shouldn't be in this country. Because that's not what America stands for. Take it back to a values conversation. That's how you're going to know how to separate people with good values and people whose values have gone off the rails. That's where we're at. And it's not a comfortable place, and I get it. I have to tell y'all, I'm going to end with some hope, because it's the only way. And I have to tell y'all, I've been traveling the world for 5 months. I barely spent much time in Israel since the war. And it's been a gift being able to go back and forth. I live in like two schizophrenic worlds. I go home to Israel, and I feel an immense amount of psychological safety, protection. I don't have to defend myself, I don't have to justify myself, I don't have to explain what's going on. I can walk around, and everyone around me knows and understands each other. Physical safety, a little less. I actually feel more physically safe there too. Because when I go to campuses, I have a security team of 20 security guards to protect me. So then I come back here, and instead of being in a world knee-deep in hostages and soldiers dying, I come back here and I'm facing a world of anti-Semitism. And I am surrounded by people who look at me and say, like, how do you have any hope? Israelis who literally cannot see 10 days ahead, let alone a year ahead, so the world is saying two-state solution, and they're scoffing at them, saying, are you kidding me right now? And I get it. And Jews around the world saying, how are we going to overcome this? I feel the fear, I feel the anxiety, I get it. And then I have this incredible opportunity that because I am forced to stand in front of people, I love it, I live and breathe for this, but because I have to stand in front of people every day, and they're looking at me with this hopeless look and these feelings of, again, fear and anxiety, well, what you forced me to do is you forced me to have hope, because I can't stand here and say, yeah, we're screwed, let's pack it in. I have to say that we're going to move on, that we're going to get over this, and that we're going to come out stronger and better, and I know it because we're Jews, and that's always how it's worked. At the end of the day, we always come out of it. We always survive it. I'm not an optimist. I've never been an optimist. Trust me. Anyone who knows me, that's the last word that they would ever use to describe me. And I once heard some beautiful words from, many beautiful words from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, who, man, it's almost every day I wish that that man was still alive right now, because I really, really could use some Rabbi Sachs wisdom right now. So I'm going to lay some Rabbi Sachs wisdom on all of us. You know, Rabbi Sachs said that there's a difference between optimism and hope. Optimists, passive. They sit back and they just expect that everything's going to be okay. Hope is active. We work towards hope. We work every single day to feel hopeful. And I guess I'm lucky. Because every day I get to walk around and I get to go event to event and I get to see a room full of people showing up. And that gives me hope because it's active. You're not sitting at home hoping and wishing that everything's going to be okay. You're here. You're actively part of the process. So I have hope because every single day I get to look at the faces of old people and young people and people of all ages who are ready to do the work. So you should have hope. Know that you might see it today. I see it every single day. I can assure you that it's happening, not just in this country, but all over the world. Jews are mobilizing right now. And our allies and our friends are mobilizing as well, right alongside us. At OSU, a girl walked up to me, she said, I'm Christian, I'm a friend, and I will read whatever speech you want me to read in that Senate hearing. And she got up and she read one of the most hardcore rape testimonies that we had, and stood up and said something that a lot of the young Jewish women did not want to say. So people are standing up. You should have hope. We should be able to take a second and take a deep breath and cling to our past, knowing that again we have overcome so much and we will overcome this. And now more than ever, we are the most organized, the most mobilized, and we have the most resources we've ever had in the history of the Jewish people. If there's ever a time where we will come out on top, it's now. We just have to work for it. So I have hope, because I watch people working for it every single day. And we as an organization, Stand With Us, will be here to help you every single day to work to create that future for the next generation. And they're here, they're in this room. And I got to be at a conference with 400 of them last weekend. Some of them are in this room. And I watched them dance and sing Am Yisrael Chai with pride. So I know we're going to be okay. So yeah, we talked about the hard stuff. But now walk out of this room empowered, knowing we are going to get through this. And we are going to come out stronger. And we don't have to wait for the light at the end of the tunnel. You know why? Because every single day we're lighting the tunnel together. So we're going to keep lighting the tunnel. We're going to shine brighter. We're going to show people who we really are. We're going to walk out of this room with more pride. And we're going to be those proud Jews every single day on the streets to show people we're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. And we're not just here to survive, but we're going to thrive, always. Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you so much for being with us. I want to thank Charlotte Korchak, who's here from Israel, with Stand With Us to speak to us here in Northbrook. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Rabbi Aaron Brun, who hosted her today. And remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see former shows on the web. Also, if you want to send anybody at Stand With Us an email, if you want to Google them, you can do that, or you can send us an email, info@tvrabbi.com. I will forward it to Charlotte. I'll forward to anybody that you want to talk to. Get involved. Israel advocacy, it's something that every Jewish person and Zionist should be involved in. And thank you again, Charlotte, for being with us.
My pleasure.
And safe travels, and hope to see you all next time right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. Shalom, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.